The movie opens in 1926, during China's warlord era, when Jake Holman transfers to the Yangtze River Patrol gunboat USS San Pablo as its new engineer. The group at the dining table discusses China's turmoil, with one man condemning foreign powers like England, France, and America for exploiting the nation through unequal treaties, controlling taxes, and enjoying legal immunity. Another argues that China is a chaotic patchwork of warlords and bandits incapable of self-governance. They debate the injustices of foreign interference, the atrocities committed by local warlords, and the suffering of the Chinese people. The older man expresses pity and hopes for the younger generation to understand the sacrifices being made, while Jake Holman dismisses the discussion, stating that he only cares about running the ship's engine. The crew of the San Pablo relies heavily on Chinese workers, or coolies, to handle most of the labor on board. This arrangement creates an unspoken balance between the Americans and the locals. However, Holman upsets this dynamic when he insists on taking direct responsibility for the ship's engines. His decision to personally oversee the engine room operations alienates the Chinese workers, particularly the boss of the engine room. Holman's expertise in engineering prompts him to warn Captain Collins about the importance of properly maintaining the ship's machinery, but his concerns are dismissed. When engine trouble inevitably arises, the engine room boss attempts a repair and is tragically crushed by a massive piston. Although Holman had reservations about letting the boss handle the repair, he allowed it, leading to bitter accusations from the coolie boss, who holds him responsible for the death. Following the accident, Holman is ordered to train a replacement for the deceased worker. He selects Po Han, a bright and capable Chinese laborer, and over time overcomes his own prejudices to develop a deep friendship with him. The captain asserts that the ship's engine was designed by the crew, insisting they know how to manage the San Pablo and that he alone will decide who performs which tasks. Holman listens in silence and leaves without responding. Despite this tension, he strikes up a friendship with Frenchie, a seasoned sailor with a kind heart and a knack for bending the rules. When Frenchie asks about the captain's decision, Jake explains that the captain refused his suggestion. As they talk, a beautiful woman named Maylee appears. When someone assaults her, Frenchie and Holman intervene to help. Grateful, Maylee thanks them, and they introduce themselves. Holman teaches Po Han everything he needs to know about the engine, helping him adjust to his new responsibilities. However, Po Han's integration into the crew is fraught with challenges, particularly harassment from Stosky, a bullying crew member. To defend Po Han, Holman arranges a prize fight between the two. Meanwhile, Maylee confides in Frenchie, revealing her troubled past. She admits to stealing money from an American mansion, explaining that she was taken in as a baby and now feels obligated to repay her debt. Determined to free herself from her situation, she says she must earn enough money to pay them back. As the fight approaches, Holman prepares Po Han, who is visibly nervous since Stosky is nearly twice his size. Holman encourages him, reminding Po Han of his superior Chinese fighting techniques. The fight begins poorly for Po Han, who takes a brutal beating, but against all odds, he turns the tables and emerges victorious. The win boosts Po Han's confidence and earns him the respect of the crew. Using the winnings from the fight, Frenchie buys Maylee's freedom from prostitution, giving her a chance at a new life. After the fight, the crew returns to the ship, only to encounter a hostile crowd of locals protesting with fires in their hands as they move toward the vessel. The captain is informed of the escalating violence and growing tensions fueled by propaganda. A crewman reports grim statistics. 200 Chinese and 150 British have been killed, while Bolshevik propaganda claims that 2,000 innocent Chinese were slaughtered. Frustrated by the situation, the captain shares their new orders. They are not to retaliate, even under provocation. This decision leaves Mr. Bordis confused, prompting him to question the reasoning behind such restraint. It is explained that firing back would only serve as propaganda for their enemies, strengthening communist narratives and potentially worsening the conflict. Frenchie and Maylee soon fall in love, and their relationship blossoms despite the tense political climate. Holman meets Shirley Eckert and informs Frenchie that she is an idealistic American teacher stationed at the China Light Mission. Holman asks Shirley if she enjoys teaching there, and she expresses her passion for it. After their brief conversation, Shirley prepares to board the ship with them. As they prepare to leave, tragedy strikes when Po-han is captured by communist forces. The captain orders that no shots be fired, as Po-han is in their custody. Holman is stunned by the news. Captain Collins tries to secure Po-han's release by offering ransom money, but his efforts are ignored. The communists subject Po-han to brutal torture, using him as a symbol of their hatred for those who collaborate with Americans. The tension grows as the captain's efforts to secure Po-han's release go unanswered, leaving the crew in a state of uncertainty. As Po-han's suffering intensifies, Holman can no longer stand by. He moves toward the area where the captain is making announcements, despite being ordered to return to his position. The captain scolds Holman, telling him to follow orders, but Holman stays, defying him. Unable to bear his friend's pain any longer, Holman shoots Po-han, ending his agony. The act is a tragic and desperate mercy, reflecting Holman's internal struggle between duty and compassion. After shooting Po-han, Holman goes to the engine room and takes out his frustration on the coal. That night, Shirley sees Holman standing alone and approaches him, trying to comfort him. The next morning, Captain Collins speaks to Holman, acknowledging the difficulty of what he has done and the emotional weight of his actions. He admits to understanding Holman's intentions and the pain he felt for his friend. But he also emphasizes the gravity of the situation, pointing out that Holman has killed a Chinese worker. Collins warns Holman to keep his record clean from now on, as this act of mercy has only worsened the already strained relations between the Americans and the local Chinese population. Collins rebukes Holman further, holding him accountable for the deaths of both the engine room boss and Po-han, despite the mitigating circumstances surrounding each incident. His frustration is evident as he informs Holman of his decision to transfer him off the San Pablo. This decision reflects Collins' belief that Holman's presence is only adding to the growing tensions aboard the ship. As political tensions escalate, Mr. Chin meets with the American captain, who asserts that the compound is American property. Mr. Chin becomes enraged, declaring that it is Chinese land and that he has authority over it under Chinese law on behalf of the battalion headquarters. He insists that the Americans have no right to be there. The American soldiers retreat, and the locals throw rotten items at them as they leave. Later, Frenchie attempts to pay off Meili's debt, but the situation turns when another man offers more money than Frenchie. The bidding turns into an auction for Meili. Chaos ensues, and Frenchie scoops up Meili, running out of the place. Frenchie tells Jake that he wants to marry Meili, but Jake insists that he can't marry her. Frenchie and Meili secretly marry in a modest ceremony, with Holman and Shirley as witnesses. It provides a brief moment of joy amid the chaos. Holman confesses his love for Shirley. The San Pablo becomes trapped by a Chinese naval blockade, forcing the crew into a grueling winter of isolation and deprivation. During this bleak period, Frenchie, desperate to see Meili despite the freezing conditions, swims ashore through the icy river waters. The effort takes a devastating toll on him. He becomes gravely ill, suffering from severe exposure and exhaustion. Meili, frantic with worry, pleads with him to return to the ship for medical care, but Frenchie stubbornly refuses, fearing he will be separated from her. His condition worsens rapidly, and by the time Holman visits during a sanctioned mail delivery trip to the U.S. consulate, it is too late. Frenchie has died during the night. Devastated by the loss of his friend, Holman urges Meili to seek safety at the China Light Mission, fearing for her life as nationalist sentiments rise. Meili, however, insists she will be fine and encourages Holman to return to his duties. Tragically, before any plan can be enacted, nationalist thugs attack. They brutally murder Meili and her unborn child, framing Holman for the crime. Holman is captured, his grief and horror compounded by the injustice of the situation. Returning to the San Pablo, the captain asks Holman about what happened yesterday, and Holman says he doesn't know anything about a murder. However, The crew accuses him of being a murderer. The captain questions them, asking what they mean, and Holman explains that Frenchie died the day before. They took Frenchie's wife, and Holman believes they killed her, now making him responsible for it. The captain receives threats from the Chinese to hand over Holman, but he refuses, stating he doesn't take their laws seriously because they are pirates. The crew demands Holman surrender. The captain, meanwhile, locks himself in his room. At night, soldiers arrive at his door, and Captain Collins opens it to speak with them. The strain of the siege and the growing unrest among his men push Collins to the brink of suicide. Just as spring raises the river's water levels, offering a chance for escape, news reaches the San Pablo of open violence against Americans in Nanking. Defying orders to return to the coast, Collins decides to attempt a rescue mission to save Shirley and the missionary Jameson from the China Light mission. The San Pablo faces fierce resistance as it nears the mission, needing to break through a blockade of junks manned by students from the missionary school. These young men, including a former student leader, have turned against their former allies. Holman plays a key role in the battle, cutting through a thick boom rope with an axe to allow the gunboat to advance. During the skirmish, Holman is forced to kill the student leader, a grim reminder of the complexities of loyalty and conflict in the region. Reaching the mission, Captain Collins and a small rescue party find Jameson and Shirley alive, but to their surprise, both are unwilling to leave. Jameson, stern and resolute, reveals he has renounced his American citizenship, believing the San Pablo's presence in the region has only worsened the violence and unrest. He argues their actions have fueled anti-foreign sentiment, causing more harm than good. Jameson insists that the students at the mission will protect him and Shirley, firmly dismissing Collins' warnings about the precariousness of their safety. As tensions rise, Chinese troops suddenly attack, ruthlessly killing Jameson's student allies in a brutal display of force. Desperate to defuse the violence, Jameson steps forward and attempts to reason with the soldiers, asserting his neutrality and goodwill. His efforts are in vain. Without hesitation or acknowledgement of his words, the soldiers coldly gun him down, silencing him forever. During the assault, Captain Collins is killed while covering the group's retreat. Holman, now in command, chooses to stay behind to distract the soldiers and allow Shirley and the others to escape. Before leaving, he hugs Shirley and tells the other soldiers to take her away. He shouts commands to draw the soldiers' attention and engages in a desperate firefight, taking out several snipers from the rooftops. Despite his efforts, Holman is eventually gunned down. In his final moments as he sits injured, he reflects on his life with haunting words. "I was home. What happened? What the hell happened?"